how does the world look with these cars?
Yeah, so the reason that I'm super excited about these prototypes and the self-driving car project in general is the ability to change the world and the community around you.
You're probably very familiar with Uber drivers, taxi cab drivers, and various delivery car companies that provide services to you and your family and friends on a daily basis. But what if that all went away? Let me start off by saying that back in early 2020 during the pandemic start, I was hit with unemployment and searched for something that produced a stable income. Luckily, I discovered the DoorDash and delivery driver apps at the time, which made ends meet. My friend Aaron and I even found ways to quote-unquote hack the system and make up to $1,500 per week, which was a fantastic alternative. However, the reason I bring all this up is because I've got some shocking news for any of the gig workers out there, like DoorDash and Grubhub drivers, Uber, Lyft, taxi drivers, commercial contractor and semi-truck drivers. Unfortunately, you are all going to be out of work in the next decade due to this disruptive new technology. Simply put, this is all due to advancements in artificial intelligence, or AI.
Is Tesla on its way to a driverless model?
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole industry ultimately will be producing autonomous cars. And if you fast forward, let's say 10 or certainly not more than 15 years, I think almost all cars produced will be autonomous.
Different types of autonomous vehicles are currently being perfected and developed moving into the early 2020s with massive growth potential and large companies behind them. Companies like Waymo, Motional, AutoX, Plus, Aurora, and a long list of other reputable companies are developing fully autonomous technology, but who stands out at the top of these options? We spoke about the history of Waymo in a previous episode and highlighted their evolving technology. Although most of Waymo's fleet is still in a virtual learning phase called CarCraft, they are currently implementing their 5th generation Waymo driver technology into over 20,000 fleet vehicles over several states using the all-electric Jaguar I-Pace cars and Chrysler Pacifica hybrid minivans. The goal, according to an article published on Jaguar's website, was to fulfill up to 1 million rides per day within the next few years. Compare that to an average of 15 million rides per day that companies like Uber fulfill, and although it may take Waymo several years to match those figures, they are well underway with a low-cost, proprietary LiDAR and automated driving system. There are 4 main components to the automated driver system or Waymo driver. It's comprised of a vehicle. In this case, they use a $55,000 electric Jaguar. The systems used for the steering and driving are much safer to operate and maintain, being that it's placed into an electric vehicle. We mentioned why electric vehicles have fewer fires in a previous episode, but there is also a sensor suite built into the car. The sensors vary depending on the vehicle, but are fundamentally the exact same. And a computational platform to run the software on their fleet, much like Tesla having access to software updates and other controls on their vehicles. Here is an interesting statistic to consider. The average gig driver costs around $35,000 per year times 3 to 4 million here in the United States, while Waymo's automated technology costs a one-time installation of $7,500 plus labor and engineers to monitor the safety of the vehicle fleet operation. That's definitely cheaper. In an article written by Cad Metz of the New York Times, he says, "It began with an ambition, but in hindsight fanciful, proposition. Uber's biggest expense was its drivers. If it could replace the drivers with machines, it could eventually reduce expenses and become profitable, ending years and billions of losses." So here's the bottom line. Uber driver costs are simply too high, and the company has been dealing with a negative operating margin of close to 50% annually the past few years. Companies like Lyft, DoorDash, and our United States Postal Service even report upwards of billions in losses as well. Considering these autonomous vehicles will require little maintenance besides the daily charge up or gas fill up for the hybrids, the idea becomes more appealing than spending the high cost per driver annually in the current gig driver workforce. This puts more money in Uber's pocket and drastically cuts expenses. Eventually, most companies will be using these automated driver systems to deliver food, packages, and of course people. Imagine a day in the next several years where even a large restaurant chain purchases these autonomous vehicles to deliver their orders direct to customer. Franchises like McDonald's, Taco Bell, or even Pizza Hut. The need for delivery drivers is lost as they become obsolete and the more expensive choice. But back to Uber for a minute, because Uber's chief executive stated, if we are not tied for first, then the person who is in first rolls out a ride-sharing network that is far cheaper or far higher quality than Uber's, then Uber is no longer a thing. Uber quickly realized that there was a real threat present in the ride-sharing industry, and they needed a better strategy to keep their market share. Currently, as of 2021, the Uber platform takes up over 60% of the ride-sharing market in the US and worldwide. But those numbers will fall with the advent of this autonomous competitor. After millions of dollars in research and years of trying to develop their own autonomous car, Uber couldn't. Lawsuits prevailed, and the death of a woman here in Arizona were some major setbacks to the company's overall success towards this transition. In 2020, Uber handed off their self-driving project to a startup company called Aurora, which told the press they were more focused on long-haul trucking across the country since that didn't involve passengers. Aurora falls among the other companies trying to catch up to the leader in the industry, however, Waymo. Even Waymo is developing their Waymo via commercial and semi-truck road tests in places like Georgia, which is set to replace the need for truck drivers nationwide. The same advanced self-driving software and suite of sensors that Waymo uses on their current fleet can be used on multiple vehicle platforms, opening a world of possibilities. They are also the only company to still have their vehicles without a safety backup driver on public roads, including a large portion here in Chandler, Arizona.
There is a major disruption looming there, not only for self-driving cars, but also the electrification piece. If you've driven an all-electric car, it's actually a marvelous experience. Plus, you have ride sharing on top of this, right? And so you've got kind of three vectors of change happening generally in the same time frame. What we've talked about focusing on publicly is we're focusing on autonomous systems. And clearly one purpose of autonomous systems is self-driving cars. And we sort of see it as the mother of all AI projects.
To conclude, this level of disruption will affect the millions of gig workers across all vehicle platforms and is coming sooner than you'd think. Like so many other industries being affected by AI, people will need to adjust to this new shift and hopefully adapt to the skills needed to survive in this new age. We hope you enjoyed this episode about the future of driving. Please be sure to subscribe for more on the new and disruptive technologies we talk about entering into society. You can also check us out on Patreon, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. I'm Max Gruber, signing off.